I already did. You are
Okay.
already.
I didn't look. All right. Thank you.
See how you are?
I love you.
I love you too. Good morning, everybody. Didn't you love chapter 20 and 21?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It was actually easier to understand, wasn't it?
Yeah.
If you know the history of Israel. Right? If you didn't know the history of Israel, it was probably a little tough to get through, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So in this chapter 20, what did you come up with for the chapter theme? What sort of things did you come up with?
I put idolatry, past, future, and for my name's sake.
Very good. Anybody else? See, this is who I can tell did their homework.
So I got God's name will not be profaned by Israel's rebellion.
You got the keywords in there. Good for you, Ray. Hi, Helen. We're on chapter
Hello.
20, looking at the chapter theme.
Okay, thank you.
Well, how many months had passed since Ezekiel 8:1? I believe
11.
that was 11 months. Because in Ezekiel 8:1, it says it's the 6th year, the 6th month of the 5th day, September 7th of 592 BC. And Ezekiel 20, verse 1, was the 7th year of Jehoiakim's exile, 5th month, 10th day, August 14th, 591. How do they know the exact dates?
People recorded stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's right there. But you have to go back, and you have to go back and be a, somebody who can figure that stuff out. I just trust them that they're close. Even if they're a few years off, I'm not too worried about it. Are you?
I don't know what he's doing today.
He's gone.
That's Barbara.
Yeah.
Okay. So who came to see Ezekiel and why?
The elders.
Yeah. Doesn't that kind of bother you that they're always coming to him? What's going to happen? But they don't believe anything he says.
Yeah.
Have you
So
noticed
true.
that?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, you sit there and you go, golly. So they came to inquire what was God going to do and what the prophet had to say about the future. Do you recall previous mentions of elders in exile?
Yes, in his house when he had the vision.
Yeah, when he had the visions about the abominations.
Mm-hmm.
And Jerusalem, in which elders there had participated. And then in 14:1, the elders came to Ezekiel. The Lord told them they had idols in their hearts. Can you imagine God? I would like a word from God. You got idols in your heart, babe. Wouldn't that be terrible? So how did, okay, now this is where you have to realize, I think God has a sense of humor. What did he say to these people?
I will not be inquired of by you.
I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah,
Why did he say that?
because he told them already everything.
You don't listen to me anyway. But he went into something. What did he go into then?
The history.
The history, yeah. He gives a brief history of Israel and what the Lord had done for them in the past. In verses 4 through 29, he talks about their father's abominations. And then in 30 to 32, he actually talks about their abominations. So God reminded them of their father's abominations. What else does he say on verse 5?
He reiterated, I am the Lord your God.
And I have made myself known to you. Since when? I mean, especially what would be in their memory, recent memory?
When they were in Egypt.
They were in Egypt, yeah. and he revealed his name. This is the time that he revealed his name. Do you recall what his name is?
Yahweh.
Yahweh. I am who I am.
Um,
Now he says that I swore to them. Swore literally translates is I raised my hand in an oath. What does that remind you of?
Court of law.
A court of law. Yeah. When you swear.
Yeah.
Of course, you can't swear on the Bible anymore. You know that, right?
Oh yeah, whatever.
I know. It's just. I swore that I would take them from Egypt to a land he selected them, flowing with milk and honey, glory of all lands, the splendor, the glory, the holy beauty. What does God tell them to do?
throw away their idols, to get rid of everything that they put their eye on to.
Yeah, he calls them the detestable things, doesn't he?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, and why does he tell them to do this?
Because they're profaning God. They're not doing what they're supposed to.
Yeah. What is
The
God
gods of
concerned about?
Egypt are in, well, the gods of Egypt are in competition with the real God. So
What
they're
is it?
supposed to
What
throw
is
out the
it?
idols of Egypt.
Yeah, because it would defile themselves.
Mhm.
So when you're worshiping a different idol, not only are you being, what's that word? You're profaning God, but you're defiling yourself.
Mhm.
How does that make you feel?
Not good.
Not good.
Dirty.
Dirty, yeah.
Mhm.
You know, I've had a lot of things happen to me in my life, and I have a lot of scars. Um, and one thing about scars is that they itch all the time, and
Yep.
it's hard to get them clean. Have you ever experienced that? And I remember Rebecca Grisham, for those, I guess, Karen and Laura, I don't know if you remember Rebecca. She works at a spa, and she gave me once body wash and with the hand scrubbers and everything. I'd never seen such things. And she looked at me like I was an odd, well, you know, I'm odd. But I remember studying, I think I was studying First Corinthians at this time. And I remember washing my body and I go, oh, that really cleans my scars. And I thought about how the Lord cleans our scars internally. I don't know why that came to me. So every time I use those, or I've gone through those, I'm on my second or third pair by now, but you know, every time I use those, I think of God cleaning me on the inside as I clean myself on the outside.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
You know, so to be cleansed really means a lot to me because I remember God cleaning me up, and it's hard work, isn't it, for those who've gone through it? You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
when you've lived a dirty life, it takes a long time to get all that defilement off of you. You know, but God in his mercy does help you go through that, and it's so beautiful the way he does that. He doesn't want us to defile himself. You know, he wants it. We cannot have a Holy Spirit within us if we're filthy dirty, can we?
No.
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 So when they say defile or I'm going to be cleansed, you know, I think of that. I don't know why but it really affects me because cleaning those scars can be, you know, I got them on my back real bad, you know, and cleaning those are tough, you know. But when you got little scrubbers and stuff, it comes off pretty easy, you know, and you feel so much better. You know, you just feel better. You feel clean, and there's a big difference. If you haven't experienced that, you might want to look into it.
That's over scars.
Well, no, I mean cleansing and letting God cleanse you out because he does the work. All you have to do is be willing and obedient. I know that's a tough one, being obedient. But what did they want? But they did want, excuse me. What did they always do when God would tell them, don't do this? You're going to
They
defile
go
Rebel and
back.
yourself.
not listen.
Pardon me? What, Claudia?
Rebel and not listen.
Yeah, they wouldn't listen. They rebelled. And this would actually demonstrate one kind of attitude.
Rebellion.
Yeah, I
Opposite
mean,
stubbornness.
yeah.
Well, the
Has
attitude.
anybody been stubborn in their life?
Aren't we all?
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I think all of us in our own way have at one time or many times, like me, shook your hand at God, say, I'm going to do it my way. I'm just, I'm just saying I did that.
Hmm.
But what did God resolve to do in verse 8b?
Pour out his
For
wrath.
his wrath.
But God did what?
Poured out his wrath. Fulfilled his anger in Egypt, but God.
But God, yeah, but God. Whenever you see but God, you got to listen to it, okay?
That's like that.
But this magnifies the riches of God's goodness, that he was pleased to work so great a salvation for them, that even when he saw them ripe for ruin, he still had mercy upon them.
Mhm.
Thank God.
Yeah, but he did this for why? What reason? Was it for the Israelites themselves?
No, for his name's sake.
For his name's sake, yeah. But I acted for my name's sake, that it should not be profaned before the Gentiles, among whom they were, in those whose side I had made myself known to them, to bring them out of the land of Egypt. What does this mean?
It's like a testimony.
Yeah.
Yeah, they knew God, the God that saved them out of Egypt. And if God comes and destroys them, then they're gonna say, what kind of God is that takes them out and then destroy them?
Exactly. Because in verse 10, Moses had used this same argument effectively in his intercession for Israel after the golden calf incident. And we read about the golden calf. Does everybody understand the golden calf incident?
Yes.
Mhm.
What happened in the golden calf incident? I'm going to
Moses
make sure
was,
you know this because it's important. Pardon me, go ahead.
Yourself.
Moses was in the mountain
Moses,
away, and
yeah.
and the people rebelled and said that they needed a God to worship.
Hmm. This is actually in
And
Exodus 32. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
the most amazing thing is what Aaron says. The calf just popped out out of whatever he had melted down. That's the funniest part.
Yeah.
That is just
I
amazing.
know, he sat there and he goes, well, Moses goes up and he gets a towel, because he hears a singing and he goes, what is it? Now they were having an orgy, okay, y'all? Don't let the words twist you around. King James version says they were playing. Yeah, they were playing around, let me tell you. He took the calf which they had made, this is Moses, and burned it with fire and ground it to powder and scattered it over the surface of the water and made the sons of Israel drink it.
Drink it. Yeah.
Amen.
Then Moses said to Aaron, what did these people do to you, that you have brought such great sin upon them? And Aaron says, do not let your anger of my Lord burn. You know what the people yourself, they are prone to evil. For they
But
said to me, make a God for us who will go before us. For this Moses, the man who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him, because he's been up in the mountain for 40 days, I said to them, whoever has any gold, let them tear it off. So they gave it to me, and I threw it in the fire, and out came this calf.
right.
Now, when Moses saw that the people were out of control, for Aaron had let them go out of control to be a derision among their enemies, then Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, whoever is for the Lord, come with me. And all the sons of Levi gathered together to him. And he goes out and they kill about 3,000 people. And that's how the Levites were named the priest. of the temple or of the
Mm.
tabernacle.
Yep.
The Moses said, decide for yourself today to the Lord, for every man has been against his son and his brother in order that he may bestow a blessing upon you today. On the next day, Moses said to your people, you yourselves have committed a great sin, and now I'm going up to the Lord. Perhaps I can make atonement for your sin. Then Moses returned to the Lord and says, alas, the people have committed a great sin. Then they have made a god for themselves, a god of gold for themselves. But now, if you will, forgive their sin, and if not, please blot me out of your book, which you have written. So he was saying, just blame it all on me. Let me take all the punishment. But go now, let's see here. The Lord said to Moses, whoever has sinned against me, I will blot them out of my book. But go now, lead the people where I told you, behold, my angel shall go before you. Nevertheless, in the day when I will punish them for their sin. And then the Lord smote the people because of what they did with the calf, which Aaron had made. So God knew what the truth was, didn't he?
Mhm.
Now, what did God actually do? Now, this is going on down in history, and I'm pulling from memory here. Did those people ever make it to the land of milk and honey?
No.
No,
They never did they?
no.
Their children did,
Mm-hmm.
but they did not.
Mhm.
So, but the Levites, that's how I put it in my notes. Levites killed a bunch of people and became holy.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Well, they did, and they were,
They were cleaning.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, they were cleansing the defilement out of the camp. Because you
Mhm.
remember how important that defilement is. I gave them my statutes. This is verse 11, informed them of my ordinances by which if a man observed them, he would live. Keep my ordinances. This is verses Leviticus 18:5. Keep my statutes and ordinances. A person will, if he does them, will live. I am Yahweh.
Mhm.
Did you look up Deuteronomy 30? I can't remember. Let me look here.
Yeah.
The Chronicles, Ezekiel.
Deuteronomy 30,
And
15 through 19. Was that?
no, I don't see it.
Okay.
That's it.
Well, anyway, and that states forcefully that to follow the commandments is to choose life and blessing. Not to follow them is to choose death and a curse. Obedience to the law was the response of a person who realized how much God loved him. The truth is similar to Jesus' statement. If you love me, you will keep my commands. John 14:15. That's what God was saying way back then, and he's still saying it now, isn't he?
Mhm.
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 Obedience, I call it the big O.
Big O.
And the big O is so important, y'all. And I know, especially when you're young, obedience is something that you rebel against, isn't it? Unfortunately. Yeah. But then in verse 12, he says, also, I gave them my Sabbaths to be a sign between me and them, that they might know that I am the Lord who sanctifies them. In Exodus 20, verses 8 through 11, it says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. You are to labor 6 days and do all your work, but the seventh day is Sabbath for the Lord your God. You must not do any work, you, your son or daughter, your male or female slave, your livestock, or the foreigner who is within your gates. For the Lord made the heavens and earth and the sea and everything in them in 6 days. Then he rested on the seventh. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and declared it holy. So the Sabbath was a perpetual reminder of Yahweh's covenant with his people.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Did we look up? I've got so much
That's good.
added in here. Pardon me?
A question. So the New Testament saints, are they also part of the commandment? Or did God?
Boy, that's a tough question, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, because I thought that, all New Testament saints are not subject to that, but some people, when you read it, it seems that it is. So I'm not sure.
I'll tell you the truth, Helen. I struggle with that one myself.
Mm.
Can you
This-
repeat the question? I didn't quite understand the question. Could you
As
repeat your
after
question?
New Testament times, has that changed? The
Oh.
Sabbath day. The Sabbath day started at Friday at basically 6 o'clock and went to Saturday night at 6 o'clock. Okay. That was considered the Sabbath in the Jewish area. After New Testament, they got together and gave Thanksgiving on the first day of the week because that was the day that the Lord rose. All right. That's when I asked a pastor that, I said, well, but the 10 Commandments haven't changed. Why have we changed it? And I wonder that. I didn't get a satisfactory. He goes, because the Bible said so. And I'm going, that's not a good enough answer for me. Where does it say so? And he goes, in Acts, where they talk about they got together and broke bread together on the first day of the week. And he said that makes it the Sabbath. Okay. So if it's a Sabbath, how much yard work and stuff do you do on Sunday?
I try and do little as possible.
The older we get, the easier it is to sit there and do nothing, right?
Exactly right. Take a nap.
That's nap
I-
day, yeah.
I read
But
in the
those of us that are young,
commentary.
it's hard to do nothing on Sunday.
Mhm.
I mean, when you're working and doing other things involved with stuff, it's hard on Sunday to have an entire day to do nothing.
It is, isn't it? But
And it's-
yeah.
I read on the supplement, how you call it, the commentary, that the Lord made the Sabbath for them to rest because they were slaves working 24/7, and that He made them a Sabbath to rest so they be free from that costume that they had, the working 7 days a week. He
Well,
wanted them to rest.
that's nice, but it's not what the Bible says. Is it, Barbara?
No.
You're muted, Barbara. What do you have to say to that, Barbara?
Well, yeah, the Bible says that they're to remember him and keep the day holy. I think it's to remind us that as busy as we are, we're not the most important central thing here. We live out in the country, but an eighth of a mile down the road is a brick country church. I'm a member there, but I go on Wednesdays to meet with the ladies there. But my husband one time, a couple years ago, came home from church and started cutting our lawn, which is 8 acres, so it's quite a bit. And he regretted it. He felt guilty that night and said, I feel really bad. It was people were coming and going to church in the evening. I was out mowing, showing lack of respect for God. And I think that's what it is.
I agree that it can be like a heart thing. I mean, if you wake up and pray and say, okay, Lord, let me go about my day and do what I need to do. If you're being just like, I guess having a sin attitude of, oh, I'm just going to do this, this, and this, it's one thing. But if you're like, okay, Lord, well, Friday night I rested and Saturday I rested. Now today's Sunday, I'm going to have to use today to do it. It's okay, I think, because you're not doing it in just defiance. I don't know. I mean, the Bible says observe his day, but it could be that on a Tuesday you have to celebrate it as your rest day. I don't know.
What was
Yeah,
the purpose?
I think
What was the
Sabbath
purpose
rest-
of everybody doing it on the same day?
Actually, it's interesting. In Germany, all the shops are closed on a Sunday. It's
Mhm.
really quite dead.
Separates
Just
us.
gastronomy is open. You can go for a meal or something, but the shops are actually closed, and lots of people from abroad really hate that. but to me, I grew up in this system, so I actually really like it. It makes this day really different. And yeah, I don't do anything. Well,
That would be
I
nice.
don't go
I
Does
grew up
anybody
it's actually
remember?
I mainly live in the UK, and every day is the same. People shop round the clock every day. There's 24/7 shops every day.
when I was
Um,
So that we
but
can get
coming back to
together and
Germany, it
shop.
really makes it the day different. I actually really like it.
Does
When I-
anybody remember the blue laws?
Oh, yes.
Yes, when I was a kid, there was nothing open, even gas stations. So, and I liked it. I could wonder how come they didn't do it. And I was a kid, and I loved going to stores with my mom. But I was glad it was closed on Sundays for some reason, because I knew it was supposed to be Sabbath day.
And then we don't work on Sunday generally, but we go out to eat, so we're making someone else work, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah,
wondering,
that was a point that was brought up yesterday. If you go out to eat, you're making somebody else work. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and then you think, you know, in the end times they're going to change the dates and the times. And a lot of prophetic people say that's one way that, you know, the devil is working is by changing the Sabbath.
Hmm.
Just something to think about. I don't know what a good answer is, quite frankly.
I hear a lot of people say that the Sabbath isn't. I have no proof of this whatsoever, but they said the Sabbath. We don't know exactly when the Sabbath is, so you just take a day and you make that your Sabbath. But I don't find that biblical. So
It's not biblical. I mean, biblical is on the seventh day.
right.
Yes, and it's
Which
tricky
is-
because for those that, like Barb said, like if you have animals and farms, I mean, we can't not work on Sunday to go feed. It's about 4 hours total, 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon. Because we've got cows, 5 donkeys, and over 50 goats. You can't not work. Like
Well, it's like
they like
Jesus
to break
said-
out. They like to break out of jail, as we call it. They do jail breaks. Then you got to fix a fence. So, you know, you end up working.
And that's a point that Jesus brought up, is it not? Can anybody remember what Jesus had to say about that?
your
That
donkey
he's the
falls
Lord
into a
of-
pit.
If your donkey falls into a pit, are you going to let it lay there and die?
No, you're going to go fix it. So you're there for 4 hours on a Sunday.
And
He
if he has
also
a
said
person
that
that,
he's the Lord of the Sabbath.
yeah,
And
he is-
actually,
oh, that's a
Sunday
good
is-
point, Eileen. That's a good point. He is the Lord of the Sabbath.
Yes.
but actually, the Lord's Day is Sunday, the Sabbath Saturday, isn't it?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It actually
Okay.
begins Friday. And do you know why? Does anybody know why?
Why what?
I'll tell you why.
A
we
Jewish
know
day
that.
starts on
That's what I was gonna
Okay,
say. My
but-
cousin's Jewish, and that's when they celebrate the Sabbath is Friday night at
And Saturday.
sundown.
till the Friday night at dusk till Saturday.
Well, let's
No,
just
through
look at
Saturday.
let's look at Genesis
Look at the,
1
you're
from the
all the
beginning.
evening.
Yes. The earth was formless and void. The darkness was over the surface of the depths, and the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was
The
evening, and there
morning
was morning, one day.
day.
Then God said, "Let there be an expanse in the midst of the water, and let it be separated from the waters. God made the expanse and separated the waters which were below, and the expanse of the waters which was above the expanse. And it was so. God called the expanse heaven, and there was evening, and there was morning, a second day." And every time he talks about that, there was evening and there was morning. So the beginning of a day begins at the evening.
Evening. Mhm.
And then goes to the following evening is a complete day. That's why the seventh day began on Friday at 6 o'clock, or whenever, and it went to Saturday at 6 o'clock. When
Okay.
you go over to Israel,
Okay, thank you.
they have an Israel elevator that stops at every floor, so you don't have to push the button for the floor.
Yeah.
Okay. Or you can get a Gentile to push it and send them to hell because they're the ones doing it and who cares. But that was a joke, but they actually say that too. Okay. Anyway, that's what
actually,
makes a
I was-
day. And so the sixth day was notorious. The first day of the week was Sunday, which is
Mhm.
the day that Christ rose.
Mhm. Yep.
It wasn't the seventh day, it was the first day of the week.
Was. It says that.
It says it in the Bible. So that's how we know what a Sabbath is. We do know what a Sabbath day is.
Denise,
Actually, I was really touched by this verse 20. It kind of reminds me of a wedding ring. It shall be a sign between me and you. It sounds so intimate.
It's a
It's
covenant.
like a special. It's sort of a special thing between us and God. I don't know. It really I really stopped over this verse this time. It shall be a sign between me and you. As I said, it reminds me of a wedding ring. It's a sign between me and my husband. It's a sort of an intimate, private thing.
Yes,
It's
it
a little
is.
sign between me and him and between us and God. I don't know. I just found it so beautiful. And I thought I must reassess my Sabbaths.
Have you taken the
I
course
don't know. I
on
just loved it.
have you taken the course on covenant, Claudia? There's a course called
No,
Covenant.
I'm
It's
not
good.
aware of it.
I've led it, I don't know, 3 or 4 times.
Is that a precept?
Yes, it's a precept
Is
course.
that a precept course?
It's excellent. You need to take that. You will love it. I'm telling you, you will
Oh, okay.
absolutely love it. All
Good.
those who have
God
taken
takes-
it,
Yeah.
Mhm. It's good.
God takes his Sabbath seriously. And the people spent, 400 years in exile, not because they had broken the Sabbath themselves, but they hadn't let the land have its Sabbath every seventh year.
yeah,
So
because
God made them pay it back.
one of the rules was every 7 years you let the land rest. Now it's been proven scientifically that it is good for the land to rest. Okay.
Mhm.
God might have known what he was doing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes.
No fertilizer back then. Yeah. Just the
And
animals.
and he would make sure they had enough food to eat. But what they did, and this is why they were exiled, they would not let the land rest every 7 years.
Mhm.
And
Right.
they did it for how many years? Kathy, do you remember how many? Was it 49 Sabbaths or?
Well, it ended up being 70 years. That's why they were in Babylon for 70
Yeah,
years.
they were in exile for 70 years, which was calculated somewhere. I'd have to go back and read it
Mm.
again.
490.
490,
Yep.
490 years that
Right.
they ignored the Sabbath.
Yeah,
Which-
they have 70 weeks of 7.
Yeah. So that's where the 70 years of exile came from, because they didn't honor the Sabbath for the land. And
So
he,
it'd be
you know,
a
he,
whole-
yeah. And now they say, well, we rotate the crops, and we move them around and everything. And I sit there and go, you're supposed to let it rest for a year, and just, now you can rotate. And that's what they were, is that what they were doing to get around that law or something? The whole point was they weren't depending on God.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm.
They weren't depending on God to provide for them.
Mhm.
Just like we tend not to depend on God to
Yeah, but
provide.
Kathy, and you've seen it where I had no money and I didn't know where my next meal was coming from sometimes, but God always, because I was obedient, that O word, he always provided for me, didn't he?
Yes.
Always provided for me. And now, I've been blessed. I have the blessings, I really think it's because I depended on God. I went to God to say, are you sure you want me to marry this guy? Remember that, Kathy?
Yep.
I was so scared. But
It was-
I put those fleece out there and he provided for me. He will
Mhm.
never let you go if you really truly trust him. It's just we don't know, most people, I do, don't know what it's like to be really poor and not know where your next meal is coming from.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Um,
interesting though, because it was after that study, like 2 years ago when my husband left me 2 days before our 25th anniversary, and I had no clue if my ATM card was even going to work. And I was like, okay, Lord. And I called my best friend and I'm like, what do I do? And she's like, well, just go try to put it in. She's like, because if not, I'll come down there. And, she lives 4 hours away. And I was like, okay, Lord, what are we doing? Like, how is this going to shake down? And
Yeah.
he's completely blessed me because I'm still not, you know, finally everything settled. But I mean, my house sold. I was able to get money from that. And I've not been hungry or homeless. I've been really blessed.
yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
He will take care of you.
He
You know.
does when you like just lay it out there and are like, okay, I have no idea how you're going to do this. But if it's not okay, here's how I'm going to fix it. It's this is, I mean, I literally just had it's above my pay grade, Lord. So I don't know. You're going to have to make some water into wine because not sure how we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And there, I think a lot of times he lets us get to our end of our rope,
Okay.
Yep.
I think we come to the end of ourselves.
Yep. We have to.
That's it, Lord, get to the end of ourselves, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, so one is the repetition
Staying
in
with
verses
you.
9, 14, and
Okay, I just
22.
realized you wasn't that. Make sure some one of us had it. Thanks. Okay. Bye-bye.
What page are you in?
I'm on page 3 of 10. Oh, I didn't read Isaiah. Let's see here. If you keep from desecrating the Sabbath, from doing whatever you want on my holy day, if you call the Sabbath a delight and the holy day of the Lord honorable, if you honor it, not going your own way, seeking your own pleasure, or talking too much, listen to this, then you will delight yourself in the Lord, and I will make you ride over the heights of the land, and you will enjoy the heritage of your father Jacob. To observe the Sabbath meant turning away from self-absorbed behavior. I think that's what he's really getting at, So one is the repetition about in verses 9, 14, and 22.
For the sake of my name.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't want his name profaned in the nation's sight.
Mhm.
So you have the sake of my name, you have Sabbath, you have profane, and wrath and anger.
Mhm.
I was resolved to pour out my wrath, but for the sake of my name, so that it would not be profaned in the sight of the nations. And that's exactly what Moses was intercessing for. He goes, God, everybody's watching us. Are you going to let your name be profaned? Because God actually wanted to kill them all and start all over with Moses,
Mhm.
Mhm.
What was his wrath about? This is in verses 8b to 10.
Oh, worship.
Yeah.
Idol worship, yeah. He gave them the statutes and the Sabbaths, and they rebelled. Wrath in the wilderness. They knew them. What happened to the children?
Same thing.
They did the same thing.
Yeah.
They rebelled in the wilderness and they received so much mercy. Rebellion in the second generation refers to acts of apostasy, which following the incident of spies, particularly in the events of Meribah in Numbers 20 and Baal Paro in Numbers 25. Read those Numbers 20 and 25 sometimes.
Mhm.
In verse 25, there's a questionable verse. It says, I also gave them statutes that were not good and ordinances they could not live by. When they made every firstborn pass through the fire, I defiled them through their gifts in order to devastate them so that they would know I am Yahweh. What on earth is that about?
What is that
The-
about?
I looked up the not good and it not pleasant or not agreeable. What
Mhm.
the Hebrew words.
So he gave him these statutes and ordinances that they could not live by.
Mhm.
Mhm.
What does that remind you of? When
Don't eat out of the tree.
has anybody been able to follow all of the statutes and ordinances perfectly?
No,
Yeah, there's one that has.
Yeah, praise.
well,
My picture.
Well, trick question, right?
great question for sure.
Yeah.
I
Um,
have a question.
okay.
Did he did that before that they were passing the firstborns to the fire or after?
Well, Mobed was in Canaan, right? Tell me if
Uh-huh.
I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So they knew the statutes. They knew about child sacrifice, although Egyptians, as far as I know, did not do that. But in Canaan, they had Mobek. Was that the god
Yeah,
that they
Moloch.
sacrificed?
Oh, but
Yeah, that they sacrificed. And what they were doing was they were following that. They were going to every religion saying, well, we'll cover our bases.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Watch their eyes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, not a
So
good,
what?
not a good idea.
Not a good idea. One of the way God punishes sin is to abandon his people to it. So they
Mhm.
suffer its consequences.
Mhm.
Okay, you can repent, but there's still going to be consequences, y'all.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't think for a moment that God's not going to let you go from the consequences.
You make
He would,
choices and they have consequences.
yeah. I'm still paying for the consequences of my sins.
Yep.
Most of us are.
Yeah.
And if you're honest, that you really are. You can have a lot of blessings,
Oh, yeah.
but still there's consequences.
Mhm.
Thus, the statutes and ordinances in this verse refer to the futile and blameworthy commandments of the pagan religions to which Israel had turned. These laws required the Israelites to sacrifice their firstborn, verse 26, a practice condemned by God. Leviticus 21 through 5 clearly states this. These
Mhm.
statutes and ordinances devastated rather than blessed the people who obeyed them. This passage says God gave the rebellious people worthless and unprofitable statutes. Ongoing disobedience leads to ever greater sin until God finally turns the people over to deception. Even in judgment, the rebellious people came to know that God is Yahweh. The phrase that made every firstborn pass through the fire refers to the child sacrifices made by followers of the pagan god Molech. There it is. According to the pagan perception, sacrifices made to a god, but that god put that god in your debt. So what they were doing was saying, okay, I'm going to do this and you owe me. Okay.
Mhm.
Such that he or she was bound to act favorably towards you. So
Mhm.
a lot of people, how do I put this? In today's society, believe that abortion is the same thing as child sacrifice.
Mm.
Yep.
Why
Hmm.
would that be? Why would they look at it like child sacrifice?
Because you're getting
They're
rid of
killing.
you.
You're doing it for selfish motives, are you not?
Absolutely.
Not even waiting for the to be born.
Child is a gift from God. And God also talked about the firstborn is the first fruit of your loins. And so it's the strength of your loins. So when you kill that, that's even worse than, I assume, killing a different one. But that's why the pagans wanted the firstborn.
Mm-hmm. It's I had this question yesterday, and do we have any nurses here? I can't remember.
Laura,
Laura. There was a woman on television the other day that said she was mad at the government because they didn't, I forget which state she's in. They denied her an abortion because she was going to have a miscarriage. And I thought, why would you get an abortion? You know, I've suffered miscarriages before and I didn't want to go through it again. And I know, see, I questioned that too. And I said, Evelyn, what is that? And she goes, well, what it might have been, and most likely was, she was already in the process of miscarrying. And instead of going through the natural
Jesus.
the process.
process of shedding the uterus and everything, Ray's walking away. He can't take this. Okay. So you get an abortion so you wouldn't have to go through that ordeal of going through the natural process of the child leaving the body. I sit there and I go, but that's better for you than artificially going in there and taking the body, isn't
Right.
it? Right, Laura?
Yes,
And that's
I
what
mean,
Evelyn was saying. Go ahead.
I made this all happen this way for your good.
Mhm.
A miscarriage, you know, when you do that and you have that, it cleans out your body. I mean, you know,
Mhm.
and it's God's way.
That's what Evelyn was telling me. And I didn't understand that because I thought, why would you go and get an abortion to prevent a miscarriage? I didn't understand that statement, but that clarified it for me. But that's what the society teaches. It's easier to go in and have a surgical process rather than letting God naturally take care of it.
Nope.
Is
One of
that
my
a
younger
correct?
yeah, I have a younger sister that miscarried 3 times. She thought she was never going to be able to carry a child, but now she has 9 grown children. Oh, I lost you. What is that?
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, the things that's put on television, you're just amazed at the misconception that's given out there, don't you think?
Stupidity.
It's something. So what are verses 33 through 34 about?
I hope it's good.
Y'all do chapter
Are we 20?
verses 33 through 44.
That's when he tells them what he's going to do about pouring out his wrath on them.
Yeah. And who's going to be king?
I'll be king over you, says the
God
Lord.
will be king.
Yeah, they always wanted their own kings, didn't they? Well, we want our own kings, you know. So they got Saul. Well, he turned out to be really great. Then you had David. David has his issues. Solomon, boy, he did a lot of great things, but he had his definite issues. 700 wives and 300 concubines. He married anybody. I guess anybody that came across in front of him, he married.
Huh?
Oh, how can he be married to 700 people? I don't know. But he'll prove himself holy among them in the sight of all nations. Verse 43 speaks of them regretting their sins, true repentance.
Mhm.
When he has dealt with them for his name's sake, then they'll know that he is the Lord. It will be the time when he sanctifies Israel, sanctifies Israel and make it holy. This is talking about a time yet in the future. It has not happened yet.
Mhm.
Verses 45 through 49, what's this prophecy about?
The Lord will come in before the nations. What he does, he's going to do in sight of the nations.
Yep, he'll send fire to. Has anybody been to the Negev? Been to Israel
Mhm.
or Judah
Yep.
or Jordan? I mean,
Jordan, yeah.
the Negev. There's nothing there. maybe a tree every once in a while, and you see some sheep with the nomads, but Nebuchadnezzar fulfilled this when Babylon's army came. He burned but also killed the people. This is like the messages directed to the mountains of Israel and in the land in Ezekiel 6 and 7. The land was desolate and the people were killed. This was a prophecy. In verse 37, it says, I will make you pass under the law. The cross reference there is Leviticus 27, verses 32 and 33, about tithing and being counted by the shepherd's rod. Dedication in Leviticus, but here in Ezekiel, it's for destruction. So under the rod, they were being counted. Who's going to die? He has everybody's number, I guess. God uses this metaphor to portray the purge of Israel that will take place when the temple is destroyed. Marking who is for God, he will take a particular notice of them one by one as sheep counted, and he will bring them to the bond, into the bond of the covenant.
Covenant.
20 was loaded with stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have any other comments about chapter 20? Okay, well, let's go to 21. What was the chapter theme that you have for chapter 21?
God's sword of judgment. He gave it to us.
His sword of judgment. Anybody else have anything?
No.
Right,
Nope. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear, isn't it? Ezekiel era.
Mm-hmm.
The Son of Man, turn your face inward, indicates a judgment contest. The sword stood for warfare, divine judgment. In Isaiah 31:8, God is the real reason that Assyria fell. He used Babylon for the task, but it's God's that gave Babylon the victory. In Isaiah 34:6, judgment against Edom, where the Lord's sword is covered with blood, it drips, get this, it drips with fat, with the blood of lambs and goats. That means everyone. And then in Isaiah 66:16, for the Lord will execute judgment on all flesh with his fiery sword, and many will be slain by the Lord. That's the different places that the sword is used. And what does judge mean? Did anybody look up the word judge?
Actually, can I just say something? You just asked a question and my microphone was muted. You
Oh,
asked
okay.
anything else about this chapter 20. I found it interesting that the end of the chapter and the beginning of the chapter, at the beginning, God says, the elders come along and God says, I will not be inquired of you by you. And the last verse says, then I said, Lord God, they are saying of me, is he not just speaking parables? It goes in line with, it goes along with the attitude of these people, doesn't it?
They just weren't getting it.
They're not really taking it seriously. They keep coming back, but we discussed the fact that they keep coming back and then they end up doing their own thing. So it's a bit of a giveaway, I think, that last verse.
Well, it just shows their rebellion, doesn't it?
Yeah, they question God's word. They want to know it, but they don't really want to believe it.
Yeah, they don't want to believe
Maybe because it sounds very it sounds very bad, because it's always for the sake of my name, that you will know that I am God. It's never connected with anything good. It's always connected with judgment. I'll really zap you and then you'll know that I'm God. Well, it's not terribly good news, is it? Because we often, even nowadays, we think if we're blessed, that means things are going well. If things are not going well, then I don't know, people have different interpretations. But to me, this is a recurring thing in Ezekiel, that you will know that I'm God is always connected with a really bad thing. I find that interesting. And these people obviously
I
do
think
not.
a lot of times, though, it also shows that he shows them mercy, and then you will know that I'm God. I think that's thrown in there a few times too.
Yeah, but the overall majority seems to be, I'm going to bring all that. You have not listened, so I'm going to zap you. And then you'll know that I'm the Lord, that I do everything as I've promised. I find that interesting. And anyway, the attitude at the end compared to the beginning, you know, the elders come along and then in the end they say, is he not just speaking parables? I found that interesting.
Well, yeah, I think in 21 we're going to learn a little bit more about God and his mercy. Okay, so let's go to 21. Judge is a verb. Okay, discriminating of man, vindicating, condemning, and punishment, a theophatic advent for final judgment. Who is God judging? It says it in verse 4.
Everybody.
From his people.
All flesh.
Everybody.
Yeah. The Bible advocates corporal responsibility.
Everybody.
Yeah.
When you read in Joshua 7 the story of Achan,
Mhm.
yeah, does anybody remember that story?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Tell us
A
about
Babylonian
that story.
robe. They were told not to take any loot, and Achan couldn't resist a Babylonian lovely looking robe, I think. And that was against what God had said. So the whole camp got into trouble, and they tried to find out who had brought this thing upon them, and it was Achan who admitted to it.
But not only Achan died, Achan and his whole family, all of his possessions, all of his animals, everything.
Yeah.
And then the Lord turned from anger, right? But otherwise, who was going to be punished?
The whole nation.
The whole
nation, yeah,
camp.
the whole nation.
Yeah, the whole thing.
In verse 6, why does God tell Ezekiel to groan?
Ezekiel saw what was coming. And, you know, I was thinking, when you hear something bad, you hesitate sometimes to want to tell it. And I think he was groaning because he knew what he had to tell the people, and those were his people, and they were going to all be gone.
Have you ever groaned?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When you see what's going on all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I bet I say every day to Ben, I said, what do you think God's thinking of this? And I hurt for God. Because all these people in the world are his. Go ahead, Laura. I'm sorry.
Oh, I just said, you know, his heart is grieved.
Yes.
When he sees what we're doing down here.
Yes. And even those that try so hard to stay in his will, we see ourselves drifting off at times and knowing that grieves heart also.
Yeah. I just the groaning was to show how the new, what on earth was I trying to say? And then I have every heart will melt, hands feeble, spirit and faint, knees will be weak as water. Behold, it will happen.
Yep.
God says it is a sure thing.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever gotten news that made your knees weak?
Oh, yes.
Gosh, it's a terrible feeling, isn't it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We get to verses 8 through 13, and what's the prophecy here?
There were unsheathed.
Like, woo.
Say that again, Laura.
The sword unsheathed.
Yeah, sharpened and polished. It means it was ready to perform.
Mm.
When was it ready to perform?
Slaughter.
Slaughter, yeah. It'll be quick.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be victorious. And it'll be against who?
His people.
And
the people and the officials.
Yeah, and the officials of Israel. the rod of my son, despising every tree in verse 10, and the rod which despises will be no more. One is the rod,
The scepter.
the
Scepter.
scepter, yeah, the kingship, the crown. One if the rod is a destroying rod rather than a correcting rod,
Mm.
Mhm.
because Jesus is going to have a rod,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
think of it's more of a correcting rod at that point when he's down on earth ruling. He's going to have a rod of iron. Not everybody's going to still like Jesus. I don't get it, but that's part of prophecy. The
Well,
scepter symbol. I'm sorry, what?
it's not Jesus, it's their hearts.
Yeah, yeah.
Save him.
The scepter symbolizes the Lord's covenant promise to David that his house would have the eternal title to the throne of Jerusalem. That's in 2 Samuel 7. This promise was rooted in the blessing spoken to Jacob, which said the scepter would never pass from Judah. Judah's hope in the midst of this judgment was the ultimate scepter of Judah, the Messiah, would never be extinguished. I'm going to skip the Matthew Henry commentary because that gets weird. What?
He would never be extinguished.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Matthew
I'm
Henry's.
just, oh, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Ellen. No, go ahead, Ellen.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that how much it must have hurt God to have to do this, but that's the only way that has to be done. He loves his people, but they are outright vocally against him. So, I mean, God is not having say, I caught you. It's like, oh, I have to do this. I don't think he's happy in doing that. It's like sometimes when our children or grandchildren are naughty, you have to train them. You have to inflict punishment, not because you want to, but because you have to, right? I think God is really
James William.
lamenting also, right? He's sad, and it's not that, I caught you, it's not that. It's just, it is so painful for him to do that decision also, isn't it?
Yeah.
Am I right or wrong?
No, you're right. I mean, it clearly says so. A lot of people read it as though he's just, I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna
Yeah,
wipe
yeah.
you, and
Happy.
but he always says, but if you repent and turn your ways,
Right.
He always gives them a way out. Always gives them
Yes.
a chance.
Yeah.
I
You can
don't-
turn from your sins, right?
Yeah, if you didn't love us or care about them, I mean, you just go ahead and sword and get rid of them all, not worry about it. But that's not the case.
Yeah, yeah. It's so sad to think, being a parent, that you don't want to punish, but you have to sometimes and withdraw certain benefits because that's the only way for the goodness of the person committing the wrong, right?
yeah.
Mhm.
And when he
It's
says
sad.
he claps the wrath, there's clapping, and then have you ever turned around to your child and just, it was like, what I mean? It's like, don't do that, or
Yeah,
I am angry. My wrath is, it's open, you know.
yeah,
To me, I don't know, but to me, it's like, okay, enough's enough. The time is ended. It's coming now.
yeah.
Bias button.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, stop. Yeah,
yeah. You
enough.
and I will appease my wrath. I will satisfy my wrath.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
We read in Jeremiah 27 and Daniel 4 about Nebuchadnezzar. I don't know if we really want to go into that right now, but Nebuchadnezzar did know the Lord. I don't know if y'all knew that, but
Yes.
he knew who the Lord was. And what did you learn about Cyrus and Isaiah?
It was interesting.
That was interesting.
Yeah,
It
he
is, isn't it?
authorized the Jews to come back from exile to their own home, to Jerusalem.
And God said, Cyrus doesn't know me, but I'm going to use him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But God said in 45:1, the Lord, thus says the Lord to Cyrus, his anointed, who I have taken by hand to subdue nations. Kind of like, he'll take us, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, and no, I don't know where it is, but I don't know if I missed it or whenever, but when God judges a nation, okay, he says, I'm going to judge each person one by one. What is he really saying there? If he's going to wipe out a nation, what does he do?
Well, he's going to
This
give
is
them.
another nation.
He's going to wipe out the whole nation, right?
Mhm.
The good with the bad.
Mhm.
But what does God say in these scriptures about that?
Thus says the Lord, your Redeemer.
If you have followed his statutes, he says that you will have eternal life, does he not?
Mhm.
Otherwise, you go into eternal destruction. So he has to make judgment on an entire nation. Everyone's going to pay the results of the punishment.
Mhm.
Do you think the world and your different nations that we live in are under judgment now?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, I think so.
Too.
I think this nation is.
Absolutely.
Kind of scary, isn't it? And all of us are going to have to pay for the sins of the nation,
Exactly.
you know. But should you be afraid of that?
No.
Or, but,
No.
but are you afraid of it?
No.
Ben and I say, if the U.S. is going to be destroyed, just take me out with it. I'm ready to go. Yeah, but of course we're older too, But you worry about your children and your grandchildren and your great grandchildren, don't you?
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed feeling there. Velomancy. I don't know if that was in there. It's a kind of divination anciently practiced by means of marked arrows drawn at random from a bag of quiver, like picking a straw. Okay. The marks of arrows drawn is supposed to be a foreshadow of the future. Nebuchadnezzar consulted divination. I can't say that word to make a decision of who to attack first, Rabbah or Jerusalem, and God messed with his asking God to direct the way God wanted him to go, which was Jerusalem. So God has a way, even if they're going to go and use a pagan way of deviation, God can get in the mess of it, can he?
Absolutely.
Isn't that interesting? The idols appear to have been miniature household gods that were consulted even by the Israelites. They just didn't get it, did they? But you can't be mad at them. How many times do we not get it?
That's what they say. We're just like them.
How about the examination of the liver? Didn't you like that one?
Oh, have that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
best known in Mesopotamian literature practiced and even through God did not condone divination in any form. He is sovereign over the earth and controls all things, and thus the pagan practices he could, by his choice, reveal his will through pagan means, But divination is expressly prohibited in Jerusalem, Deuteronomy 18:10 and 2 Kings 17:17. It's the art, practice, or gift of discerning or discovering future events or unknown things as through supernatural powers. A prophecy, a presentation, or guess. In Hebrew, it's a verb to practice of diviners of the nations like Balaam or false prophets of Israel, and it's prohibited. Sworn an oath to the Babylonians probably refers to the treaty oath made by Babylonian and Judah. Remember, Zedekiah eventually was punished for that. because he swore in the name of God. Verse 22 is actually a prophecy of what happened in 582 BC, where they had the siege walls put up. If you ever study ancient, I know it would be one of your favorite things to study would be ancient warfare. It's kind of interesting. Verse 23, but he brings iniquity to remembrance that they may be seized. Nebuchadnezzar brings up the fact that they had broken the covenant with him. They conspired against him, and he keeps this in mind. He was no dummy, was he?
No.
No.
Yeah. Remember is remember is to recall, to bring back up for use. It's not like I forgot it and it just popped back in my head. It's I'm bringing it back up. You know how you put things off, you
Mhm.
know, and I'm gonna get to it one day, or I'm gonna, it's kind of that thing. And you go, okay, the day has come. I need to get this done. Yes, when was it? Wednesday. I worked all day on finishing about 4 projects. I was determined. And Ben would come up and I said, go away. I got to finish these projects. I'm tired of them laying around here. It's kind of like that. I've had them sitting there. I had them sitting there. Now I've got to do something about it.
Don't talk about it.
Iniquity. Now, have you noticed too? Because I've always taught about what sin is, what a transgression is, and what iniquity is. If you haven't heard me sometime or another, I will bring it up again and bring out the little paper of what it is. But they're all sin. They're all encompassed in sin. But
Right.
one is worse than all of them. Which is worse, a sin, a transgression, or iniquity?
Iniquity.
Iniquity.
And why is iniquity the worst one?
Premeditated.
Yeah, it's like God puts it in, like you slept on it all night long trying to figure out how to get this person back.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Transgression is rebellion, an act of violation, transgressing, violation of law, command, sin. Forgive is in here a lot. Is to send forth, yield it up, to let it go, let it alone, let it be, to disregard. That's what forgiveness is. It's not forgetting it. It's not remembering it. It's letting it go.
That is so hard to do.
Oh yeah.
But I've told this story before. I had a terrible mother. Okay, the last time I saw her, I knew I had forgiven her because I felt such love for her. Now I wasn't going to put up with her stuff, which she tried, but all I could do is know that I had truly forgiven her. I had truly let it go and loved her for my mother. I honored my mother, as much as I could, because she was a very wicked woman, let me tell you. But I could forgive her, and I knew it. And that is I'm telling you, if you have someone that you just hate and you can't forgive, pray to God that you know how to forgive, to have Him help you work through it, because it is so worth to let that go. Not that it doesn't come back and gnaw at your memory little cells, because it does. Every once in a while I'll hear a voice and go, that sounds like mom, and but I just, well, you know what I'm saying, but I just say, no, you've let that go, and I remember that I have let that go.
I think it is, I think, I don't know whether it's in this class or another class, in Greek, there is a different words for forgiveness. Like our Father who art in heaven, the Lord's Prayer, we forgive to let it go and not come back to us. We forgive for in a way, it's for our own sake too, that we let it go. We just let the toxic go. but in our Lord's Prayer, in Our Father, forgive us is God is called charis, which is grace, because God's forgiveness is worded different than when we forgive other people.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, in Greek, that's I don't have the I know that in our
That would
Lord's
be a
Prayer.
word study.
Yeah, in our Lord, I was surprised by that. I thought in English it's both forgive, forgive us as we forgive others. So when we forgive others, it's lighten our own burden. God loves us so much that He wants us to feel free and not let any chain to our own mind.
Oh,
But when
yeah.
God forgive, it's grace. It says grace.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's two different words, but I'm surprised to learn that because I'm not.
I did not know that. I'll have to do a word study on that because that sounds
Yeah.
interesting. It really does. That's like love has, I think, 5 different Greek words to it.
Yeah.
Agape love, philo love, all that.
Eros love.
Yeah. That's interesting. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I was surprised too. So, but it's a good word.
But here we are forgiven or released
Yes.
of the penalty of our iniquities, bending towards sin, and our transgressions, violation of rebellion of God's laws because of the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross. So we are forgiven by God because of what Jesus did.
Yes.
The devil tells us, though, that we aren't really released, like iniquity of addiction, but that is not what God tells us. I have studied being a drug and alcohol addict counselor, and I've studied all this. People can physically get addicted to certain things, yes. But within 3 days, it's out of your system. In 10 days, you can break that, okay? But I'm telling you that you truly can't break it without God's grace. I have seen very, very few people that have been able to totally break their addictions. And I had one lady walk up to me once and she goes, Miss Denise, why do I not have a problem and other people are still suffering? And I said, aha, it's because you've truly turned your heart over to God and you have repented for your sins and you believe in Him and He has given you the grace to walk away from it. And she goes, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, we detoxed drug babies for 18 years for the state, and I never saw one mother recover. It's almost like subconsciously they knew they couldn't do it.
Yeah,
And they do
well, they
dumb
believe-
stuff the day before court.
because the devil tells them that they can't break it,
Yeah.
and when you read the statistics, we have so many AA places and so many alcohol and drug rehab places. Do you know that only 1 to 3% of people actually ever break their addictions?
Right.
So you sit there and I go, well, what good are all these? And they're just money grabbing places too. I'm telling you, I've seen it. I've been there. I've seen it.
Yeah, I have my oldest grandson was addicted from the time he was in sophomore in high school. Got kicked out of high school. He's 29 now, finally, and clean the last 5 years. He's got a wife, he's got 2 kids, the Lord's
That's
really
great.
blessing him, but he knows the Lord. He relies on Him.
Yeah,
Only way to
that's
do
what
it.
makes the difference.
Mhm.
I'm telling you, the only ones I've seen that's truly who don't fight it every day. I went to AA meetings and I saw people saying, I haven't had a drink for 20 years, but I come to AA every day because I know if I skip a day, I'll go right back to drinking. Well, they've just traded one addiction for another addiction.
Oh,
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you just sit there and you want to tell them so badly, you need to let this go. You need to learn how to live with God. But
But going to an AA meeting every day is a better addiction.
it is a better addiction. True.
Yeah, it is
That's but they still have the same emotional problems, Ray.
Yeah. They do.
because all addiction is because of some other rooted problem. You know that, right?
Mhm.
I mean, it's just there's problems there in the first place. And if you don't, get to those problems, that's why there's a great study. It's off of Celebrate Recovery, but Celebrate Recovery is a good one.
Yeah.
It's done with knowing that you can only do this with God's help.
Yeah.
Yes.
So but a lot of people who are in AA places or rehab places are, I got to go here because of court.
Because of what?
Court.
Or
Oh, the
Yeah.
court. Okay, legal. Okay.
Yeah. I'll go to jail, and I don't feel like going to jail right now. I've been there. I don't want to go again.
Hmm.
Yeah. All right. Then we talk about turban was worn by priest. Isn't that interesting? But it serves as a setting for the crown on this one. The removal of these signs of dignity signifies degradations. Degradations. Yeah, this is in verse 26, excuse me. The scepter will not depart from Judah, or the staff between his feet, until he has come with obedience to all the people that belong to him. So all of this stuff, the final judgment, if you will say, will not come until Jesus is holding his scepter on earth. By the way, the kingship described in Hebrews 5-7 is all about the priesthood of Christ. There's a reproach against the false prophets. On verse 29, the H.S. Holman's Scholar version is on verse 29. While they offer their false visions and lying deviations about you, the time has come to put you to the necks of the profane wicked ones. The day has come for your punishment. So the punishment is going to happen. They're going to be handed over to brutish men who have no compassion, are skillful only to destroy, because they themselves were brutish and delighted in the destruction of God's Israel. The time of punishment has arrived. In 31, fire is a symbol of divine judgment. So this is the divine judgment that he is proclaiming that will come through Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, and that it is going to happen. But he's also saying there's going to be a future judgment when all nations will be judged. So, and we will get into that in part 2 more so. This is kind of like a little hint, little dribbles of crumbs, to say, this is where this is going. So what sort of things did you learn from this week's lesson? What did you learn about God?
What he says he will do.
that's right. He's in charge.
He's the Lord of history.
Okay. Does he do what he says he's going to do?
Yes.
But he still loves us, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want you to lose sight of that. He doesn't want anyone to burn, okay?
If he didn't love us, he wouldn't put up with us.
Yeah, what are you thinking now? But even when even when as a nation we are judged, it is still individual as far as judgment.
Yes.
Don't forget that it's individually, we're all under individual judgment also.
Yeah.
I know a lot of it seems repetitive. Next week, I think is, let me look here, is week 8. Lesson 8, chapters 22-24. A man to build up the wall and stand in the gap. Oh, that's a good one. You'll get a lot of one-liners out of that one, okay? It'll be interesting. No, it really does, to stand in the gap. A lot of good teachings about that. Has
Yeah.
this changed your mind about God at all?
No, but it changed my mind. Uh, I feel that there's so much I don't know when I study this, that how powerful God is and how he treats us out of love,
Mhm.
how intense he is. It's not like a little fire here, a little fire there, right? He
Do you
burned.
remember? Do you remember in high school? You had to study like Zeus, the Greek gods and the Roman gods and stuff like that. They were based on human emotions, weren't they?
Yes.
Yeah, and you had to appease the gods and everything. And then I think of God, and he's nothing like that, is he?
It's just like these gods, the gods of Molech, and that those are from our the way we perceive things, not the way God does.
Yeah.
I don't think we can even figure out how God thinks. I can't. His thoughts are way higher than mine. That's for sure.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah, and I think that it helps me seek out. And I don't know if anyone in the group here likes music, but I found out from that King King Neb.
That's what I call him, Neb. Just call him
Yeah.
Neb.
And Italian, it's called Nabucco or something like that. And Giuseppe
Nabucco.
and Verdi have
Yes.
orchestra. Yeah, Riccardo Muti, they perform uh the what did he perform? Oh, the Sorrow of the Hebrews, King Nabucco.
Yes, it's beautiful. I
It's
love it.
so beautiful. It's
Yes, yes.
the sorrow of the Hebrews during exile, right?
Yes.
Oh,
And it's
really?
yeah, try to do it in YouTube and set Nabucco, Giuseppe Verdi. It is such a beautiful, intense music, right, Claudia?
It is lovely. I
It's so
love it.
lovely. It's
It's
only like,
great. Yes.
yeah, it's so beautiful. Those of you who like music, it's a
I
gift.
love
It's
music.
very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a play too with it. If you want to see, it's called, I think they call it The Sorrows of the Hebrews when they're in exile. But they were talking, Giuseppe was talking about Verdi was talking about the sadness of the Italian before they were united as a nation, something like that. Yeah, so there's two areas. One is for sorrows of the Hebrews, and one is for the sorrows of the Italian, or, well, you have to listen to it yourself. I can't describe it, but it's beautiful music, right, Claudia? I just love it.
It is wonderful. Yeah.
It's
Totally
worth,
recommend it.
yeah,
If you
we're
can
here
find a
15
if you can
minutes.
find a link to that music so we can listen to it, would you send it to us?
Sure.
If you just enter Nabucco, Nabucco, it'll come up. You can't miss it. It's very famous. It's very beloved.
Yeah. So one is a orchestra and one is a play. So
Okay.
yeah, okay. I'll try to look for it sometime today, tomorrow.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that, and I'll send it out to everybody so we can listen to it. We'll keep on studying. Notice our class keeps on dwindling. I don't know. Do you think I'm scaring him off, or is it Ezekiel that's scaring him off?
Ezekiel.
Is Ezekiel? It gets better. I'm telling you what. Part 2 is you'll.
I hope so.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just remember by the time I got done with part 1, I was like, what have I got myself into? But then part 2 was so much better.
Yeah.
About the same thing as
Yeah.
Pastor. What did I do?
Mhm.
Yeah, this is very heavy, I have to read it several times to even know what it's talking about sometimes.
Yeah,
Quite true.
Oh,
Yes.
no.
yeah,
Can't get in the car. I get
but
to
it's
my-
better in Ecclesiastes.
Oh, is it?
Won't take that again.
Oh, Helen, we did Ecclesiastes. It about wore us all out, didn't it?
Oh, is it?
Actually, I loved
That's
it. I
fine.
loved Ecclesiastes.
Not gonna hurt anything.
You'll be exhausted.
I was exhausted after that one, and I was going to do Job after that. And I said, nope, we aren't doing Job after that. Ecclesiastes was depressing enough.
Ooh, you need to clean up your tank
All right, well, I'm going to let y'all go.
But
now. Gotta feed them.